And good evening, East Alabama and West Georgia. Dr. Don in here with you on your Wednesday evening. It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, on a very cool and wet Wednesday evening across East Alabama and West Georgia. We're in here this evening to talk to you about the possibility of a few strong thunderstorms this evening across East Alabama and West Georgia, and even the possibility of some severe weather. We're going to walk you through where we are right now, where we think we're going to go in the next several hours across East Alabama and West Georgia. And then we're going to tell you what's going to happen the rest of the week, and maybe even another threat of severe weather as we head toward the weekend. Maybe out there on Saturday afternoon into Saturday night. So let's jump right into let's jump right into it this evening, and let's show you what's happening with the latest information from the National Weather Service out of Birmingham. This is their latest graphic. Giving the timing of the possibility of severe weather across East Alabama and West Georgia. Anytime between about now and maybe 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, we could see some severe weather across East Alabama and West Georgia. What are the threats? We are in most of the areas in a level 2, that is 2 out of 5 being the highest threat level. But the southern end of our coverage area, I'm talking about southern Chambers, Tallapoosa, southern Coosa, down into Elmore, and down into Lee County, and then in Georgia, that would be extreme southern Troup County, and then Harris. You do have a level 3. 3 out of 5. So that's relatively significant, especially for this time of year, to see a level 3. I think the best chance of severe weather is going to be south of the I-85 corridor, and probably even a little bit further south than that. I'm talking about places maybe like Eufaula, back over to Troy, Alabama, back over toward Evergreen, down to Andalusia, maybe Enterprise, Dothan, and then in Georgia, we're talking probably south of Columbus, over to around Americus, and then maybe south of Macon, and eventually on into tomorrow morning down in southeast Georgia and extreme southern Georgia, and across the Florida Panhandle. I think there's a chance there, too. We do have a cluster of storms moving across central Alabama this hour that did produce some tornado warnings earlier down in southeastern Mississippi and southwest Alabama, but that cluster of storms has moved out of relatively warm air and into some more stable, cool air, and so we haven't seen those storms rotate in the last hour or so. But the Storm Prediction Center does have all of East Alabama and West Georgia in either a slight or marginal risk or enhanced risk for severe weather now through about 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, for the possibility of tornadoes and damaging winds. So that's why we're here this evening, to talk to you about this and to let you know what the possibilities are as we head throughout the next several hours. So you see the graphic there on the screen. One other thing I want to talk to you about while we're on the graphics, and that is the flooding potential. So I'll show you where the flash flood watch is, and it does cover a good chunk of central Alabama, from West Alabama all the way to East Alabama, and then into west central Georgia. And quite honestly, I think that's probably at least for the areas between I-20 and I-85 in both Alabama and Georgia, I think the heavy rainfall threat is probably the biggest threat we have at the moment, based off of what we're seeing on radar. We're not seeing any severe weather out there right now, but we are seeing some really strong bands of very heavy rain moving into central Alabama that will eventually move over East Alabama and West Georgia. We've already got swollen creeks and rivers all across the area, so any further heavy rain is just going to aggravate the situation we already have. And we could certainly see, with the rivers and streams, we could see flooding, and we could even see some localized street-level flash flooding as well as we go throughout the remainder of the evening across East Alabama and West Georgia. And one other thing right quick before I go to the radar, and this is the Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma. And you'll see that enhanced risk that stretches from just north of New Orleans across southern, southeastern Mississippi into southwest Alabama, up into central Alabama and east Alabama. And then you have that slight risk category that covers the remainder of east Alabama and west Georgia. Marginal risk that covers north Alabama, northwest Georgia, and back into east Georgia and back down to southwest Georgia. And I think this may certainly come to pass, but I think it's painted a little bit too far north with that enhanced and slight risk category. I think if they dropped this to the south, maybe 50 to 75 miles, they would have it pegged pretty good. It's just too cold north of the warm front, I think, to get any significant severe weather to develop this evening. And I'll show you all that in just a few moments. There's a huge temperature contrast south of the front versus north of the front. And the last time I looked, the front was south of Montgomery. So south of that, we've got temperatures down in South Alabama well into the 70s, maybe upper 60s by now with the sun going down. But we had some pretty good heating in South Alabama today. That wasn't the case across the rest of East Alabama and West Georgia. So the surface-based instability has really had a hard time getting going. We've got surface-based cool air in place that's been coming in from the east and northeast back in from Georgia all day long. I mean, heck, we stayed at 36 degrees up here in northeast Georgia for about 24 hours, beginning at about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Maybe not quite 24 hours. I think we got above 36 at around 9 a.m. this morning. But we were right there at 36 degrees for probably maybe 20 hours. Where I'm located is on the backside of the Appalachian chain, so that cold air that comes in from the north dams up to the backside of the Appalachian Mountains here where I'm located in Cleveland, Georgia. And, our temperature didn't move for about 20 hours, stayed right at 36. Well, some of that cool air has pooled back into West Georgia and East Alabama as well, and that happens quite often. So that's helped, even though we have some things going on in the upper levels of the atmosphere that are pretty dynamic and ordinarily would be a pretty good setup for severe weather. We have that cool air at the surface if you're north of that front, and I really think that's going to help keep us from having significant severe weather. Now, could we have a rogue strong storm or two? Yes. And officially, are we in that area that the Storm Prediction Center says we could have severe weather? Yes. But I've been doing this a long time, and when it's cool outside like it is right now, it's not impossible, but it is kind of difficult to get that severe weather going. I mean, we're at 45 degrees at 5 Points at our weather station there at the venue at 5 Points Farms. I mean, it's kind of hard to get significant thunderstorms going at 45 degrees outside. You got to at least be, in the low to mid 60s before you really start to worry about severe weather. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. Now, let me just go ahead and switch over to the Southern Union State Community College Live Doppler HD radar. And we'll take it full screen. There we go. And you can kind of see what's going on. Let me let it loop a couple of times so you can kind of get a sense of direction of the way these storms are moving. They're moving from southwest to northeast. And you see that cluster that's moving into central Alabama. You see some pretty heavy red returns moving up into the Clanton area, right there along I-65, pretty close to the home of the Alabama Emergency Management Agency. That cluster of storms did have a history earlier today of producing some tornadic cells down in Mississippi and southwest Alabama. And if you look real close, I know it's kind of hard to see, there is a tornado watch down there that covers southwest Alabama, central and southern Mississippi. But since that storm has moved north of the warm front that's hanging out down there, and we'll get the telestrator up here, and I'll show you where that warm front is. But since that cluster of storms has moved to the north of the front, we have not seen any severe weather warnings associated with this cluster of thunderstorms. So that front is and don't hold me to this, but it's kind of in that area. Let me change to a different color. So the front's kind of lined up like so. Now, it's not straight across like that. But south of that red line is where we have the warmer temperatures, the higher dew points, more conducive for severe weather down here south of Montgomery. And then north of that front is where the cooler temperatures are located at this hour. Matter of fact, let me get back up to the main computer right quick. And let me go to some weather stations down south. Let me just see right quick what kind of temperatures we are looking at down there. Okay, so wow, what a contrast. Okay, that looks well. We're showing. I really don't know if I believe that or not. It's showing Troy 74 degrees. I think that may be old data. We've got 54 at Talladega, 55 at Sylacauga. Now, these are National Weather Service weather stations. We've got 57 in Selma. Montgomery's at 57 at this hour. Demopolis over in southwest Alabama is 59. It's 49 in Auburn. Let me go to Mobile right quick and get some South Alabama. I really wish the National Weather Service would make all of their local home pages exactly the same so you can quickly find what you're looking for. It's a novel idea there. All right, so we are showing Mobile right now, 72 degrees. So there is a huge contrast. South of that red line you see on the screen versus north of that red line. So you may see some really big thunderstorms down there in southwest Alabama, but then when they get up into central Alabama, they're going to lose some of that warm moisture, so the instability certainly not there for them to work with. So at this point, we're going to have to kind of watch and see how things evolve over the next several hours. But I got to be honest with you right now, I just don't see. I don't see a significant threat of severe weather across East Alabama and West Georgia. But strong thunderstorms, very heavy rainfall, absolutely. But I'll preface that with this. The Storm Prediction Center says that it's possible, so we've got to go with that. But I'll be shocked if we see any severe thunderstorms. I'm talking tornadic-type thunderstorms across East Alabama or West Georgia. So let me go in close on that cell forming down there in southwest Alabama, because that looks like a discrete supercell thunderstorm trying to get going there northwest of Jackson, Alabama. That's over there between Millery and Coffeyville. To the northwest of Jackson, just north of Chatham, Alabama. Echoing really bad. Okay. Did the echo just start, or has it been doing it? Anybody? Okay. All right. Hang on. Don't move. All right. Is it still echoing now? Or can you hear me at all now? Still echoing. Okay. You're way behind me. Okay, so can you still hear me now? Okay. I'm good now. Okay. All right, so producer Tracy's up here trying to help me fix this, and her phone is like 30 seconds behind live. So I was trying to test it, and she's still hearing me echoing, so I had to figure out what was going on here. But I see you guys are answering me in the chat room that everything sounds fine now, and I'm getting a thumbs up from the producer up here. So, all right. I'm sorry about that. This is a very complex setup. A lot of things have to happen to make all of this work. And sometimes, because we're streaming, I can't listen to the live stream because I would hear that echo as well. And it would. There's no way you could do that. So I have to monitor what's going into the computer. I can't monitor what's coming out of the computer on the other end, if that makes sense. So sometimes that happens, and I apologize for that. We've done a lot of work here recently to keep that kind of audio trouble from happening, but occasionally there's a little gremlin out there that gets involved in it. But anyway, I hope maybe you could, and I'll recap what I've just said in just a few moments. I'll go over it again for you. In case it was just so annoying you couldn't listen to it. But right now I'm looking at a thunderstorm cell down in southwest Alabama that, quite honestly, is a little bit concerning. If you're down there in southwest Alabama, if you know someone who lives near Coffeyville or just to the east of Millery, this is down in southwest Alabama. I'll zoom out. So it's north of Mobile. That is a singular cell thunderstorm that is showing rapid signs of development down there. You see the hail core. You see the dark red. That's heavy rain. You can see what appears to be an inflow notch beginning to take place down on the southwest flank of the storm. So this is a classic sign of a strong, severe thunderstorm. We don't have anything from the Weather Service just yet. They haven't issued anything on it. And so they're going to watch this for a couple of more volumes scans, and then they'll make a decision on whether they're going to issue a warning on this. Here's the thing, and this is what they're going to have to be real careful with. That warm front is just north of where this storm is. So in another 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes or so, this thing's going to get up there around that warm front. And one of these storms that we see up here in central Alabama now, when it crossed that warm front earlier, it did start rotating. But then once it got north of that warm front and got up into that cooler air, then the rotation broadened out, and the rotating part of the storm just kind of fell apart. Instead of having tight rotation, it went back to very broad rotation. I would anticipate this storm cell doing the exact same thing. So, yeah, just kind of an interesting storm there. And if you look back into Mississippi from Meridian all the way back down to Hattiesburg, some pretty heavy storms down there also. And then just very heavy rainfall up here in northwest Alabama back into Mississippi near Tupelo and Starkville. And those heavy showers across central Alabama, Chilton County, over into Coosa, southern Talladega, southwestern Clay. One little bitty small shower there moving across the Wadley area there in southwest Alabama, southwest Randolph. And then some moderate rain over in extreme eastern Randolph, about to move into Heard County, just to the west of, southeast, I would say, of Woodland, and just to the west, or east, rather, of Wedowee, moving into Heard County. So that's what the radar looks like right now. No, nothing severe that is headed toward East Alabama or West Georgia. As a matter of fact, we do not have the first severe weather warning in the state of Alabama at this hour. The only thing we have is that tornado watch that's down there in southwest Alabama and a couple of singular storms down there trying to get going. So let me kind of recap for those of you who were with us at the top of this when we had that bad echo going. Let me go back to the graphics. And for those of you who are just now joining us, let me go back to the graphics page. And we'll go back to the main graphic. All right, so here's the latest information from the National Weather Service out of Birmingham. This is the latest graphic that they issued this afternoon showing the threat levels, and then on the right-hand side you see the timing of the possible threats that we could see this evening. But I got to tell you, before I go through this, and for those of you that are just joining us just a few moments ago, I explained because of the temperature difference across East Alabama and South Alabama, and same for West Georgia and South Georgia, I'm really not sure we're going to see any severe weather across the area between I-20 and I-85. I think their graphic is plausible, but I think it's a little too far north. I think that yellow should probably be down there around the I-85 area, and then the orange, which is the enhanced risk area, probably should be right across South Alabama, South Georgia, and Northwest Florida. But nonetheless, this is what the Storm Prediction Center is putting out for us, and so we have to pay attention to it and at least be weather aware in the unlikely event that we do see stuff develop across East Alabama and West Georgia. Most of the Dr. Don coverage area is in a level 2. That's a slight risk category. Then from about the I-85 corridor south, you have an enhanced level risk. That's a level 3 out of 5. So maybe a few tornadoes are possible, damaging straight-line winds. So what should you do when we have these threats? Well, you need to have multiple ways to receive severe weather information, know where your safe place is in your home and place of business, and check for regular updates. Of course, as someone just pointed out in the chat room, you want to smash that like button. Very, very important. Folks, here's the deal. Here's the way Facebook works. They have this extremely elaborate algorithm that's pretty much controlled by artificial intelligence. And that algorithm is constantly monitoring what you are doing on Facebook. Now, it's not a thing like they're spying on you. They are monitoring your habits on Facebook. They monitor and record what your likes are and what your dislikes are. And that's what you see the most of on your Facebook newsfeed. So if you don't interact with Dr. Don's weather on a fairly regular basis, then eventually we will fall off of your newsfeed, or you won't get our information for an extended period of time. Now, it may be that we post something, you haven't interacted with us. It may be an hour or two down the road before you actually see it on your feed. Well, in a weather setup, that's no good for you because weather is time sensitive, obviously. So if you're going to continue to watch us on Facebook, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, I'm not discouraging it, you got to hit that like button. You've got to share us with your friends and ask them to share with their friends. And you need to occasionally make a comment. Making a comment and liking or following someone on Facebook is considered interacting with that page. And that will keep us on your feed. I have people, we do daily weather forecast. Every morning we do the primetime forecast. It's typically out by 5 or 5:30 Central. I have people who comment and say, if it's just thank you, Dr. Don, or thank you, or good day, or have a great day. I have people who religiously do that every single morning. And that keeps me front and center on their news feed. So when I go live to cover severe weather, they get that notification immediately. Now, the best thing for you to do is to go over to YouTube. If you don't have a YouTube account, create one. It's free. Doesn't cost you a dime. subscribe to Dr. Don's Weather on YouTube, and then click that little notification bell. YouTube works totally different. YouTube uses what's called a push notification to send out the notifications. So you don't have to worry about interacting with us or commenting or liking us or sharing us or any of that stuff. Now, don't take me wrong. I want you to continue to do all those things because it helps us also. But the point is, if you like us and interact with us on Facebook and go over to YouTube and subscribe and click that little notification bell, you got two redundant ways of getting notified when we go live. And it doesn't matter whether you interact with us or not. So it's just a good idea to do that. I get texts all the time. Why am I just now seeing this from Dr. Don's Weather? This was 3 days ago. It's not us, and there's nothing we can do. It's all on you, on your end, to make sure that you interact with us so that we stay in front of you. My hope is one day Facebook will realize how important breaking news and weather is to its users. And they already know, and I do too, that social media has become the new media across this world. Legacy media, the television tube, is not doing it so well these days. It's over on social media, and we knew that was going to be the case sooner or later, and it's here, folks. This is how people get their weather and news information. It's on social media. So I'm hoping the social media platforms, especially Facebook, will at some point re-engineer the way their algorithm works, especially when it comes to those who provide weather for folks across the United States. Who knows? Hoping maybe they hear me preach, and maybe they'll consider doing that. It certainly would make our life a whole lot easier because, our numbers, when we have severe weather, our numbers go through the roof. And then when we go through 2 or 3 weeks of begging weather, nothing much is happening, then the numbers start coming down. And then we have severe weather, and then some of you who need to get the information don't get it because you hadn't interacted with us. It shouldn't be on you to make sure we stay in front of you to give you life-saving information. There needs to be a change in the way this whole thing is engineered. But anyway, I'm sorry. I got off on my soapbox. I should have played the soapbox alert tone when I got started there. But anyway, This is what the Weather Service is telling us they think is going to happen tonight. You see the timing between now and about 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you're in Georgia, just add an hour to that between 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. Eastern time. Then we have the Storm Prediction Center outlook, which pretty much lines up with what the Weather Service out of Birmingham is putting out. I mean, that's where they get the information from as well. You see that enhanced risk that stretches from north of New Orleans across southern Mississippi into southwest Alabama and then up into central Alabama. I think that enhanced risk is too far north. I think if they drop it down about 50 to 75 miles and then pull that slight risk category, the yellow, down with it, I think they would be right on target. I think it's just too cold. Now, the one thing that could happen, and let's go to the full screen radar. And let me put that warm front back on the screen. And don't hold me to this. This is basically where the warm front is lined up at the moment. No, that's too far north. Let's try that again. Let me get the radar pulled. There we go. Let's try that again. That warm front is, oh, come on. I keep hitting the wrong button. Here we go. That warm front is lined up something like so. And again, don't hold me to that. That's not exact placement, but it's in that general area. Now, these storms down here in southwest Alabama, they grow strong and they head toward this warm front. But when they get north of this red line, they get up here into some cooler air. And I just don't think we have enough instability at the surface, even though dynamically in the upper levels of the atmosphere, it's pretty strong. I just don't think we have enough surface-based instability to get severe weather down to the ground. Now, Could we have some significant winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere and then some of those very heavy rain bands, which is where the red is? Could that mix some of that wind down to the ground? Absolutely. And then could that straight line wind cause some wind damage? Certainly it could. So that's one thing we will have to watch for. But I'm talking about tornado weather. I just don't think that we are going to see a significant tornado situation across East Alabama and West Georgia as we go throughout the evening. But we're going to watch this for you. And if that changes, of course, we'll be right back with severe weather coverage here on Dr. Don's Weather. So that's kind of where we are right now. Let me clear that and take the radar back up a little further north. And I'm gonna put the motion on it so you can kind of get an idea of which way the storms are moving. Right now they're lifting northeast. As the night moves along, they'll move a little bit more to the east. And we'll see that move right across East Alabama and West Georgia. All right, so I'm seeing some information in the chat room, the National Weather Service chat room, that goes very well with what I'm talking to you about. The Weather Service is telling media in the chat room and emergency managers, this is coming from the Georgia side of things at the National Weather Service office in Peachtree City. They're talking with the Storm Prediction Center now about looking at cutting back the northern edge of the slight marginal risk areas for severe in their next outlook, which is due out here in just a few minutes. So if we let's go back to the graphic. So what they're doing, they're talking about taking this marginal and slight and pulling it back to the south. And I would imagine the enhanced, well, of course, Georgia's only concerned about the marginal and slight because the enhanced is not in Georgia. So probably what we're going to see here in the next update, we're going to see the marginal, the slight, and the enhanced pulled further to the south. Are they listening to me tonight or what? That's what they're talking about right here. Right here on the, I'm looking in the chat room, and that's what they just said. So we'll see if that happens. All right, so I'm going to go back to the radar. And I'm going to come over here to the chat room and see what's happening in the chat. If you have questions, now's the time to do it. I try to kind of glance at the chat room when I'm telling you what the weather is, but I can't really pay attention to it until I focus on it, and that's what I'm doing right now. So Tony says it is cool in Phoenix City. Does not feel like tornado weather. Well, Tony, you are 100% on target there, brother. It is. It's not tornado weather. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I was just kind of scratching my head this afternoon when the SPC put out their graphic that we've been looking at with that enhanced risk all the way up into central Alabama and East Alabama. The only thing I can think of is they felt like at one time that warm front was going to advance further north, and it just hasn't done that. So I just don't see the threat. Lewis Battle, there's my buddy, says it's too cold in middle Georgia. Carrollton, you're in West Georgia, so same for you. You're welcome, Kathy. Same for you. East Alabama, West Georgia. If you're between I-20 and I-85, could you have some strong thunderstorms tonight? Absolutely, you could. Heavy rainfall? Certainly. Some flooding problems? Yes. Some pretty strong, gusty, straight-line winds? Yes. Tornado weather? Yeah, I don't think so. If we see any of that in Alabama, I think it will be across South Alabama. We're talking south of I-85 and probably much further south than I-85. No bad weather in Roanoke right now. 59 degrees in Auburn. Yeah, see, it's just too cool out there. Um, no. The low across most of East Alabama, of course, I don't know where you're at, but the low across East Alabama and West Georgia is going to be in the mid to low 40s tonight, not 30s. I mean, we're at 5 points is at 45 right now. It feels colder out there than it actually is, but it's still, the actual temperature is still just too cool for severe weather. I know, right, Pam? It's you know why it feels that way. It's because it's moist. It is a wet cold. A wet cold is bone chilling. If you take the humidity away, then it wouldn't feel nearly as cold outside as it does right now. That's what makes it feel so cold. And there's a huge difference. When you have a humid cold, you just can't get warm. But if you have a dry cold, totally different story. You go outside with short sleeves on right now if you didn't have near 100% humidity. Glenn's watching us in the Big Springs. Tabitha's watching us in LaGrange. Hey, Dale Bradford. Hey, Pam, watching us over in Glenn, Georgia. Thank you, Myra Longshore. Well, Josh Caldwell in the house. Mike Hill watching us down in Panama City. Sandra Dunlap's in the house. Thank you, Miss Beth. Y'all hang on. I got to raise my chair back up. I got one of those chairs that's got a cylinder on it. And that thing, it'll put me in the floor. I got to get me a new chair. Hey, Missy, I don't expect it to get tornado bad in Woodland tonight. I don't know what your tolerance level of bad is, so it's kind of hard for me to answer that question. Could you see some very heavy rainfall and gusty winds in Woodland tonight, in Roanoke tonight, in Randolph County, Clay County, Troup County, all of East Alabama and West Georgia? The answer is yes. But I think it's just too cold to see any tornado-type weather. Hey, Anita, in Valley, Alabama. Well, Dow is in the house. Hey, Heather. Wadley in the house. Hey, Kim. I know y'all's creeks and rivers are already up down there. I have seen some photographs. So any rain that we receive throughout the remainder of the night is just going to aggravate that. The 5 points gauge is showing a little over 1.5 inches in the last 24 hours, and that's going to be pretty consistent all across East Alabama and West Georgia. So if you pick up another quick 1 or 2 inches, your creeks and rivers are already at capacity, so you can see what could happen pretty quick. You know, if you come up on water over the roadway, hang on a second. Soapbox alert, especially at night. And I would apply this anytime, day or night. But especially at night. Do not cross water if it's over the roadway. You don't know what's under there, folks. It's too dangerous. Don't do it. All right, so I'm looking at Coffee County, Alabama, and I do not see a tornado warning. I see no evidence of a tornado. Somebody posted in the room that there was a Coffeeville. Okay, hang on. Maybe I misread. Don't see a warning on it. That's the storm I was talking about earlier. There's Grove Hill. That's where the storm is now. There's Coffeeville. And you see there is a meso detection right there, but I don't see a warning on this. Let me go check a couple of other things. All right, so Birmingham. Here's one post in the Birmingham chat room that says, watching the tornado on the ground crossing Highway 69 southeast of Coffeeville. And that's where the boundary is. So this storm is doing the same thing that the earlier storm did. As it crossed over that warm front boundary, it started rotating. I bet you it will fall apart here pretty quick. So that is in the Mobile coverage area. And yes, it is confirmed. There is a tornado warning. Let's see. Threat damage considerable. And this is for Choctaw County. Or did they just cancel it? Hang on. I think they just canceled it. Get over here where I can confirm that. No, at 6:27 p.m., a tornado warning remains in effect until 6:45 for northeastern Clark County. Okay, so they did cancel it for one county, but they're continuing for Clark County. At 6:27, a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado was located 7 miles east of Coffeeville, or 11 miles west of Grove Hill, moving to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. And that's what we're looking at right there on the screen. That's down in southwest Alabama. That will not make it up into central Alabama or east Alabama or west Georgia. This thing will, there it is right there. That's your tornado right there. Right there inside that white circle. It's crossing over that warm front that I was telling you about, and that's where these storms seem to be starting to circulate. And that's a pretty good indication right there. You got a mesoscale that's showing up, and it's showing up pretty good on the velocity product. But then as it moves on to the north and starts getting up into some of the cooler air, I would be willing to bet that this will fall apart. But again, I'll zoom out so you can kind of get an idea. So this is East Alabama. This is East Alabama and West Georgia. This is the area that Dr. Don's weather covers, okay? When I say East Alabama and West Georgia, this is the area that I'm talking about between I-20 and I-85 for the most part. We get down into Harris County. And on nights like tonight where there's absolutely nothing going on up here and we have severe, life-threatening severe weather, I'm subject to talk about anywhere across the southeastern United States. So your tornado is down here. The warm front is right in this general area. North of that red line, we have cool temperatures in the 50s and even 40s in some locations. South of that line, we've got temperatures in the 60s and 70s. So that's how these storms are able to get going down here in the warm, moist, tropical air of southwest Alabama. And then when it crosses over that boundary, it starts to rotate, and that's where we get those tornadoes forming. Then as it moves on up to the northeast, it gets up into some cooler air, and it most likely will stop rotating, and we'll lose that tornado signature. Just a little weather 101 for you. But if you know somebody that lives, there's another rotating storm back over in Mississippi. All right. I was a little confused as to why we were not seeing the polygons. I just figured it out. So I had all the severe weather indicators turned off because we've been dealing with winter weather. I mean, what was it? 2 weeks ago, we had a massive historic snowstorm in this same area. Now we're dealing with tornadoes. All right, so here we go. Now, you can see where that tornado is. There's the polygon. And you'll see it's purple flashing. That means it's a considerable damaging storm, confirmed. No question we've got damage taking place here. And this thing is moving to the northeast. So if you know anybody who lives up here in Thomasville, Alabama, you need to call them, make sure they're aware of what is going on. Your tornado is moving in that general direction. It'll move pretty close to Thomasville. And then after that, the next stop would be up here in a community, in a town called Pine Hill, Yellow Bluff. That's down in southwest Alabama. If you happen to be watching us down here and you're in Thomasville, now's the time to go to your safe place, which would be the lowest floor on your home, basement if you got it. You want to go to the center of that lowest floor into a closet, a bathroom, a small room with no windows, and gather up some blankets or cushions off the couch, futon, baby bed mattress, pillows, anything that you can use to cover yourself. If you've got motorcycle helmet, baseball helmet, football helmet, bicycle helmet, a good idea to put those on. Make sure you got on hard-soled shoes. Make sure you take your cell phone with you. and go to your safe place and remain there until the all clear is given. That would be for anybody in this area down in southwest Alabama, along Highway 154, just to the northeast of Coffeyville, all the way up to Thomasville. You need to be in your safe place. And folks, if you know anyone who lives in that area, you got friends or family down there, just give them a call right quick, send them a text, make sure they're aware of what's going on. The overwhelming majority of folks who get injured or lose their life during severe weather are those who were completely unaware and they didn't take the precautionary measures to protect themselves. So make sure you do your part and give them a call. Make sure they're aware they're under a tornado warning down there. And this is not just a warning. We have a confirmed large and dangerous tornado on the ground that is causing considerable damage. About 4 minutes ago, the Weather Service posted a statement that they believe the storm may be in the process of weakening. They have lost that well-defined debris signature. And they're pointing out that this storm is right there on that warm front. This is precisely what that storm 2 hours ago did. Not in the exact same area, but pretty close. All right, so we've got a brand new update from the National Weather Service out of Mobile. The storm is still showing signs of circulation. They're going to issue another tornado warning. They are about to issue a new tornado warning, but they're going to remove the considerable damage threat tag, which tells me that they continue to see signs of weakening, but the storm is still rotating. So here's the brand new warning. National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning for north central Clark County in southwest Alabama until 7:15 p.m. At 6:42, a tornado-producing storm was located 8 miles southwest of Thomasville, moving to the northeast at 35 miles per hour. And now they're saying radar confirmed. So again, this is still a very serious situation. We know this storm has history of causing damage. We know it was on the ground at one time. We're not 100% positive it is still on the ground, but we are 100% positive it is still rotating. So now they extend the warning past Thomasville. So the instructions that were given just a few moments ago for you folks who live in Thomasville, you need to go ahead and go to your safe place. That storm will be on top of you now in the next 3 to 4 minutes. This is going to come very, very close to downtown Thomasville. You're going to move in that direction. Your tornado, your possible tornado, you'll see how it's kind of broadened out a bit. Your possible tornado is in that area. You really, and just a few moments ago, this rotation was much tighter. Those dark reds and the light blues were like side by side, and that area was much smaller maybe 5 minutes ago. So the rotation is certainly broadened out, which is a sign that this storm is not wound up as tight as it was just a few moments ago. But it is still rotating, and we still have a mesoscale on it. So you still need to take this very serious, and you can see it continues to move on off to the northeast. So it'll be moving over Thomasville here in just any moment now. Understand Doppler's anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes behind real time. So this could be moving over Thomasville as we speak. All right, let me go back to the velocity. The reflectivity, and then we'll zoom out and we'll show you what's happening across the entire southeastern United States. We do have multiple tornado warnings ongoing over in Mississippi. This is going to be near Laurel, Mississippi, up to about Quitman, along Interstate 59, crossing over 59 just north of Laurel, Mississippi. We have a tornado-producing thunderstorm there as well. Now, if that holds together, understand that boundary that we keep referencing is kind of like right in here. And you see what's happening. This storm in Alabama is crossing over that boundary. It went tornadic. And this storm in Mississippi is very close to that boundary, and it went tornadic as well. As this continues to work off to the northeast, it'll get out of that juicy, moist air to the south, and I would expect this storm to become non-tornadic. Look up here, just west of Butler, Alabama. We have a mesoscale indication right there. So that storm's got some upper-level rotation in it, but you'll notice we don't have anything to the ground up here because that part of that storm is up here in the cooler air. And I would expect when both of these storms that are tornadic at the moment get north of this line, the same thing's going to happen to them. That's why I don't think we're going to see any tornadic weather up in East Alabama or West Georgia. It's just too cold. Could we see some strong thunderstorms up here? Yes, we certainly could and probably will. But when I say strong, I'm talking about heavy rainfall and gusty winds. I'm not talking about tornado strong. Let me switch back to the Birmingham radar, maybe. Here we go. It'll take a minute for it to load. Hey, Sydney Morgan, thank you. And I know it's thundering and lightning, and you got some very heavy rain in portions of East Alabama and West Georgia, but nothing severe. I'm looking at in that frame, which stretches from basically Carrollton, Georgia, all the way down to Clanton, Alabama, a total of 13 lightning strokes in the last 3 minutes. So not a tremendous amount of lightning output with this line of storms. Now, that's a pretty heavy cell right there in Randolph, out there around Lake Wedowee, North Lake Wedowee, just south of the Swag community, back down to Highway 48. You got some pretty heavy rainfall taking place right there. I mean, it is absolutely pouring out there to the northwest of Wedowee. That's moving off to the east, northeast. That will affect northeast Randolph County. Already raining hard up there in Newell, Pine Hill, but it's not severe. And we don't think that's going to go severe up there. It's just too cool. We got temperatures in the 40s across East Alabama and West Georgia. Well, I think originally the Storm Prediction Center felt like the warm front would move further to the north, but it hasn't. I think that's why they put most of East Alabama and West Georgia in that slight risk category, which they are in the process of reworking that graphic as we speak. We should get it here in just a few minutes. And I think we're going to see that slight risk category is going to be pushed further south. I think the original thought was the warm front would migrate further north, therefore allowing these storms a much further distance to continue to develop. But that just hasn't happened. And, these are all things we just don't know until the event gets underway. And that's why a lot of times the forecast is, in some folks' eyes, is a bust. I think when we don't have severe weather, when there's a possibility of severe weather, that's not a bust, that's a hoorah. But some people refer to that as a bust. And that happens because we know the ingredients are going to be there, but are they all going to get mixed up just right to make things happen? Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Hopefully, this is one of those cases where they don't get mixed up just right for East Alabama and West Georgia. Yeah, I hear you, Kathy. I know that the Weather Channel and they're going based off of what the Storm Prediction Center is telling them. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen. But I've been doing this a long, long time. And I can almost, not quite, but almost guarantee you when it's 45 degrees outside, you are not going to have any tornado weather. You may have a heavy thunderstorm. You may have very heavy rainfall. You may have flooding issues. You may have damaging straight-line wind, which can cause significant damage. But when I tell you I don't think we're going to see severe weather, I'm speaking of tornadic-type severe weather, for the most part. I don't really think we're going to see significant, widespread straight-line winds, though that's more likely than tornadoes. Between I-20 and I-85, you get down there in South Alabama, South Georgia, totally different story, because those areas are south of that warm front, where they're in the upper 60s and 70s down there. Big, huge difference in temperature. But those folks at the Weather Channel, they use the guidance from the Storm Prediction Center, and all that's going to change in the next 30 minutes or so. You got some rain and some thunder and maybe some gusty winds there in Wedowee, but nothing severe. Leslie, you definitely got to be much, much warmer than we are right now. I'm assuming you're in East Alabama and West Georgia, between I-20 and I-85. 72 would certainly much better support tornadic activity, but, you'd have to probably be above 65, I would think. I mean, you could have a tornado with it as cold as it is outside, but you're not going to see an outbreak. It really depends on what's going on upstairs, in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Channel 2's probably doing the same thing. Since Glenn Burns left, they just... I'm just kidding. They got some great meteorologists at all those stations. But they're still using the guidance from the National Storm Prediction Center. And that's going to change. Their guidance will change here in the next 30 minutes or so. And you'll see the tone change with your television meteorologist as well. All right, let's see what time it is. So it's 6:54 Central. Let me kind of reset what's going on here. It is Wednesday, February 12th, 6:54 Central, 7:54 Eastern on your Wednesday evening. And we are watching strong thunderstorms across central Alabama, moving into east Alabama. So far, nothing severe. We have no weather watches, no weather warnings, other than the flash flood watch for East Alabama and West Georgia between I-20 and I-85. If that's where you live, that's where I'm talking about. I'm talking about Sylacauga, Talladega, Ashland, Lineville, Woodland, Roanoke, Alexander City, Lafayette, Lynette, Valley. Talking about LaGrange, Hogansville, Franklin, Carrollton, even Noonan. Talking about Auburn, Opelika. Talking about Tallahassee, Wetumpka, back over in Harris County in Georgia. You're basically between I-20 and I-85. Even though the Storm Prediction Center has been telling us all afternoon to be prepared for potentially significant severe weather across East Alabama and West Georgia, the warm front has stayed well to the south. And so these storms that are growing down in southwest Alabama that are going tornadic, when they cross over that warm boundary and they get up into the cooler air, they lose that tornado characteristic and then start to produce very heavy rainfall. We got some craziness going on in the upper levels of the atmosphere, no question about that. Dynamics are through the roof, but there's no ground or surface-based instability to bring these storms down to the surface and keep them tornadic north of that warm boundary. So I think what we're turning into across East Alabama and West Georgia is a thunder and lightning show, heavy rainfall, maybe some gusty winds, and more of a flash flood threat and a river and creek flood threat. Rivers and creeks are already at capacity in most locations. So another inch or two of rain, which is certainly plausible, especially in those areas where these storms train, could cause some low-lying agriculture-type flooding along some of these creeks. That's what I'm looking at for Auburn. That's what I'm looking at for Ashland. You're in East Alabama and West Georgia. You're between I-20 and I-85. That's what I expect for the rest of the night. If you're in South Alabama, and I'm talking about south of Montgomery to Auburn, maybe over to Columbus and Macon, and probably further south than that, that's where the best chance of tornadic-type thunderstorms will be, I think, as we go throughout the remainder of the evening. Mandy, that warm front boundary, and I see a brand new tornado warning now for southwest Alabama. We'll talk about that in just a second. It basically, and this is not exact, but it's down in this general area of southwest Alabama, and it stretches on over into, let me zoom back out. All right, so that's Montgomery right there. Keep an eye on that. We'll zoom out. Now, let me put the warm front. Again, this is in the general hood of where the warm front is. Maybe Laurel, Mississippi, over to Thomasville, Alabama, to maybe Troy, Eufaula, and then on over into Georgia, south of Macon. South of that red line, we've got temperatures in the 70s. And then north of that red line, we have temperatures in the, 40s and 50s. So big, huge contrast between the air mass to the north of that red line and to the south. And what we've been seeing for the last couple of hours, we've been seeing storms blow up down here in extreme southeastern Mississippi, southwestern Alabama, and they get pretty strong. And then when they get right up here to the warm front and they start crossing over that boundary, that's when they start going tornadic. And they'll stay tornadic for, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And then they get up here in the cooler air to the north of this line, and the rotation goes away. And so we lose the tornado characteristics. And that's exactly what's happened with this storm that just came through Thomasville. You know, we had a considerable damage tag on that tornado warning as it moved north of Jackson, Alabama. And then about the time it got to Thomasville, the rotation started to broaden, and we started to lose the tornado signature on that storm as it crossed over that warm boundary. Now, I've already been asked the question multiple times, is there any chance that warm boundary could move north? It's always possible, but it hadn't moved at all much in the last several hours, and it certainly hasn't moved as far north as we originally thought it was going to. So I'm not sure that it will. We've got the cold front coming in from the northwest now, and that's probably going to block that warm front from coming much further to the north. All right, we just got a flood warning for Randolph County. So let me get to the text of that. And this is going to be for the Tallapoosa River at Wadley. And this is not uncommon. But the National Weather Service now issuing a flood warning. Let me just get the text of it up here and I'll read it to you. The National Weather Service in Birmingham, Alabama, has issued a flood warning for the following rivers in Alabama. Tallapoosa River at Wadley, affecting Randolph, Chambers, and Tallapoosa counties. Heavy rainfall is expected over the next 12 hours over the Tallapoosa River Basin. On top of heavy rainfall in the last 24 hours, a flood warning is now in effect for the Tallapoosa River at Wadley, Alabama. So at the moment, flood warning in effect from Thursday morning through Saturday morning. Minor flooding is expected. So you folks who live around the Tallapoosa and those locations I just mentioned, you know what minor flooding means. Typically it means flooding of agriculture land. And they're saying that at 13 feet, flooding of pasture land in the area occurs, and cattle and farm equipment should be moved to higher ground if higher stages are forecast. At 6 p.m. Wednesday, the stage was 8.2 feet. Forecast, the river is expected to rise above flood stage tomorrow morning to a crest of 16.8 feet. So flood stage is 13 feet. We're expecting the Tallapoosa to go to 16.8. So those of you who have interest around the Wadley Bridge, you know what 16.8 feet will do. You've been here and done this many times. So that's the latest from the National Weather Service. You should plan accordingly. So as of about, let's see. As of about an hour ago, the gauge was at 8.2, and we expect it to pretty much double between now and tomorrow morning. Well, thank you, Kathy, for that. And I'm not saying that the warm front absolutely can't move any further north. I mean, it's possible. But with the cold front coming in, you know, it's going to have to fight that cold front to move much further north. I mean, it certainly is possible. But in the short term, I don't see that happening. But just as things have not developed so far like we thought they were going to, it can change. and just as quickly as it didn't happen. So I'm not telling you not. I'm not suggesting you let your guard down. I'm just saying at the moment that warm front is way down in South Alabama, and it just doesn't look like it's moving to the north. If at all, it certainly isn't moving very quickly. And our temperatures, let's see if we've moved at all since we've been on the air here. No, we're still at 45 degrees at our weather gauge at the venue at 5 Points Farms, with 100% humidity. That's why it feels so cold outside. Dew point's at 45 also. So the column is completely saturated. And so our temperature really hasn't moved at all since about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Maybe 4 o'clock we hit 45, and we've been pretty consistent right there all afternoon long. At the rain gauge at 5 points, we've received right at a little over 1.5 inches in the past 24 hours. The highest wind gust we've recorded so far this afternoon was 15 miles per hour. That was at 4 o'clock. Yeah, so we've gone from 42 degrees at 10:46 this morning to 45 degrees at 6:32. So, I mean, that's not a huge difference in temperature at all. Leroy, I can't tell you for sure. I can tell you that we don't have any severe weather at the moment. And we've got, I would consider what you've got in Randolph, Clay, and Tallapoosa as bad weather. Now, if you love a good summertime afternoon thunderstorm, you wouldn't call that bad weather. There's no severe weather in East Alabama or West Georgia at this hour. Could it happen later on? It's possible, but some things are going to have to change. Number one, you got to warm up. Well, you're not going to warm up until we get some movement on this warm front that is hanging out down there across South Alabama. Could it advance north? It certainly could, but it's not showing signs of it at the moment. That's kind of what we're up against. This is going to be one of those, we're going to kind of watch and see what's going on here. Thanks for the question there, Courtney. With the heavy rainfall and the things that are happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere, where the dynamics are pretty impressive up there tonight, yes, it could push some of those high winds, up at 5, 6, 7,000 feet. The heavy rain could push some of that down to the surface, and you could have some gusty straight-line winds. That is certainly possible. Could it bring down a tree or two and knock down a power line? Yeah, that's possible also. Same thing for Opelika. You're between I-20 and I-85. Opelika's right there on I-85. The further south you go, the better the chances of seeing significant weather will be with this setup tonight. You got to get down there where the warmer air is, really, to get into that higher risk area. Okay, so we have crossed over the 7 p.m. hour, so we've been on the air now for about an hour and 19 minutes. No severe weather ongoing across East Alabama or West Georgia at this hour. Going to take you in a little closer on our area of concern. There's I-20 up there around Anniston. Here's Auburn, Opelika down here in Lee County. Dr. Don's weather basically covers this area between I-20 and I-85 from I-65, which runs from Birmingham to Montgomery, east over to about Noonan. These are the counties that we focus on. And at this hour, we have no weather watches or warnings other than the flash flood warning for the Tallapoosa River Basin in Randolph and Tallapoosa and Chambers County, and the flash flood watch that's in effect. We have no severe thunderstorm watches or warnings, no tornado watches or warnings. There is a tornado watch in Alabama, but that is from Selma south in southwest Alabama. The warm front is draped across South Alabama, south of Montgomery. And that's where the stronger storms have been developing so far this afternoon down in southwest Alabama. We have not seen any severe weather up in central Alabama, east Alabama, or west Georgia so far. We got a long way to go, and it certainly could happen. But some things are going to have to change, where our temperature is going to have to rise significantly to get any severe weather across East Alabama and West Georgia. And, it's possible that could happen. We're just going to kind of have to watch this one together and see if that does indeed take place. I wanted to check one other thing before I bounce out of here for a little while. Let's see. I can't tell on that one. Yeah, okay. So we do have an update. I'm going to change this live, so just bear with me. This is probably going to look ugly when it comes up, but stand by. I'll fix it. No, it looks good. All right, so we do have an updated graphic from the Storm Prediction Center. And so they have trimmed back the slight risk category and the enhanced, but it's still there. But it's more right along that I-85 corridor. Now, I think Southern Chambers probably gets in on that enhanced risk area, and then the slight risk area is going to continue on up there into Northern Chambers, Southern Randolph, and then maybe over into Troop. Let me... see if I can get this. Let's see if we have an updated graphic from the National Weather Service yet. I don't see an updated graphic on the SPC Outlook from the National Weather Service to get a little better look at the county that are covered on that. But I am looking at some tornado parameters that the Weather Service has just posted. And there's no question that the better parameters are south of Lee County and across South Alabama and South Georgia. The absolute best parameters are in Alabama. It doesn't even make it over into Georgia. I really would like to show you this right quick. Let me... see if I can grab this right quick. Just hang in there with me. I think I can get this for you right quick. All right, we're getting there. Okay, this is the basically the CAPE values, or in simple terms, this is the energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And what this is showing us, and I'm gonna zoom in on this just a little bit more. Just cover my mug. All right, so now you'll see that where you see the oranges or the light cream colored, that's where the best energy is, and is where the best energy is expected to be for the next several hours. And you'll notice we're talking about really from just south of Columbus, back into southwest Alabama, southern Mississippi, and back into Louisiana is where the absolute best CAPE values are. And so that's where one would expect the tornado threat to be at its largest. And that warm front is right along the northern edge of where you see these orange colors down here in South Alabama. That warm front would have to lift north for this to pull north. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'll be a little surprised if it does, if that makes sense. So that's what we've got, folks. That's where we stand with all of this, and I'm going to continue to watch this for you throughout the remainder of the night. And if we were to get anything significant, I'll come back and update you again in the next, hour or so, and show you the absolute latest that's taking place out there. And, of course, if something were to develop sooner, I'll come back and we'll continue with our live coverage. But, thank you for joining us. If you could take a few moments and support us, we greatly would appreciate it. We do a lot of work to bring this to you, and there's a lot of expense involved in it. So if you can lend us a hand, we greatly appreciate that. At the very least, be sure you like us, comment on our post, share us with your friends, ask them to share, and don't forget, go to YouTube and subscribe to Dr. Don's Weather and click that little bell so that when we go live to cover severe weather, you'll be guaranteed to get that push notification. And I'll see you back in here in about an hour, and we'll update you again on the latest situation. Lots of heavy rain across East Alabama, but nothing severe at the moment. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you back here shortly on Dr. Don's Weather.